Now, everyone, it's time to spread a bit of movie cheer.
Welcome to the Movie Cheer Podcast, the show for movie fans. I am your host AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and on today's episode of the Movie Cheer Pod, we will be discussing Fast and Furious 4 and Fast 5 in celebration of the new Fast X movie being released this past week. I thought, let's look at two of the best movies, two of my favourite movies in the franchise, those two movies. So that is going to be today's headline topic. I'm going to do a deep dive into those two movies. I know I've discussed these movies on the pod before several times, but I thought let's do a full deep dive in celebration. It's a Fast and Furious marathon, a fast marathon today of those two films. I'm looking forward to today's headline topic. It's going to be awesome. But as always, before we get to today's juicy, meaty headline topic, I like to start off the show with a segment called Not So... Hang on. No, that's what we used to do on the show. Yeah, I've totally lost my train of thought. We start the show off, ladies and gents, my apologies, with a segment called What's Been on the Screen.
What's been on the screen? The screen. What's been on the screen?
What's been on the screen? What have I been watching over this past week, ladies and gents? Well, I'm going to start off with a movie called Journey to the Centre of the Earth, a 2008 movie. This stars Brendan Fraser. It also stars, I always forget his name, the kid who was in, the guy who was in the Hunger Games movies, the Baker's kid, the Baker's boy or whatever it is, opposite Jennifer Lawrence. So basically, this movie is an adventure, probably like science fiction adventure story. Brendan Fraser. Let's go into this. So, I mean, basically, he's a scientist. Brendan Fraser character. We see earlier on in the movie, his brother was also like a scientist / explorer, and he wanted to they have this theory where there's like volcanic tubes in volcanoes or near volcanoes that go all the way down to the center of the Earth. And then his brother goes like missing 10 years earlier. And then we see in this story then his nephew turns up, the kid from the Hunger Games, and he has to look after his nephew for 10 days. And then they decide end up finding some documents that lead to this exploration mission where they go to Iceland and they go to this volcano, and then they take a trip to the center of the Earth. So they go on this big journey, and we go into like this other world in the center of the world, in center of the planet. And in this world, it's just like it's just all these mesmerizing things. There's animals, creatures that have been extinct. These unusual creatures there, dinosaurs. And it is a really fun, family-friendly movie. A lot of comedic moments in there. I like Brendan Fraser. It's kind of like very much like a mix of The Mummy, like a very PG Mummy. And I know The Mummy is pretty PG, I would say anyway, but I'd say it's like a even more family-friendly version of The Mummy if you like Brendan Fraser in the Mummy movies. But this is a kind of one, I don't know whether it did that well at the box office. It actually had a sequel 4 years later, and the guy from Hunger Games starred in it again in the same role. Brendan Fraser didn't return, and the female actress, she didn't return either. But The Rock was in that movie. It was like Journey to the Center of the Earth 2 or whatever it is. So The Rock kind of took over as the lead role from Brendan Fraser. But that's kind of weird as well, because obviously the Scorpion King, and then they take over. That's a bit of an odd connection with them too. But this is kind of one I do recall hearing about this back in the day, and this was when I heard about this felt like it got slated, and it was one of those where everyone was like, this is a really bad movie. Brendan Fraser is kind of done at the box office. And to be fair, he was really was done for a good number of years. I mean, he's only really had the resurgence a lot of people say it's the resurgences with this movie, The Whale, and I think that really has brought him. Obviously, he won an Oscar for it, so it's definitely been a big resurgence for him personally. On a personal journey for him. But I honestly think Doom Patrol was the one where he's really come back, and I know he's kind of not really acting there. I suppose that's like the thing with that. There is points in Doom Patrol where you do see his face, but I mean he's in the robot body a lot of the time. But I really like that. I felt like the resurgence of Brendan Fraser was with Doom Patrol, and don't get me wrong, I've not seen The Whale, so this Whale's meant to be amazing. It's meant to be a brilliant movie, and I'm looking forward to giving that a watch eventually. But yeah, I do really think he definitely did go like, and I suppose movies like this were the point where it was like the change of his career, where it just went, took a like downward trajectory, and for years he didn't do anything. And I remember you see it on like the internet, like look at what Brendan Fraser looks like now or something. You see them stupid ads on like the side of websites, and or you'd see like just like something on Reddit or something like that. And he's only a young guy still. He's a young guy. I think he still looks the part. I think he could still do action roles. I'm glad he is kind of back in the limelight in movies now and doing movies, because I do really like his movies. A lot of his movies I've watched over the years I've really enjoyed. I don't think there's been many of his movies that have disappointed me, and this was one again where, like I said, it got slated. But I'll be honest, I really had a good time watching this. It was like a 90-minute movie, so like an hour and a half, and that was, to be honest, that was the good length of time for me. That's the kind of movie I want to watch. It's nice and easy. It's not a movie that does anything extraordinary. I feel like it's exactly what you expect. It's family adventure, going exploring. Like I said, bit of like that mummy vibe to it at times, Indiana Jones, and it's fun. His characters maybe not as heroic as some of his, like in the role as is it Rick Connell, is it in the Mummy franchise? A bit more goofy this time, a bit more like of a nerdy scientist role in this one. But I enjoyed it, and then he has these heroic moments. But I just think it was a really fun movie. The CGI in it was a bit of the 2008. It kind of like reminds me a bit of like some of the awful CGI of Star Wars at the time. Like the CGI dinosaur in this movie isn't great. But I also think as well, I don't know, you don't really care that much about it. It's obviously, I'm observing it, I'm thinking, yeah, this CGI is not brilliant, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm looking at the whole movie, and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. You know what, this movie is actually quite fun to watch, and that is the experience I got from this movie. Brendan Fraser was great, good journey. I think this is actually a book as well. I think it is actually a book, and they used a book within this story. So this is really kind of cool. So they have this book that was like written years and years ago, and then they go to this journey to the center of the earth, and then they realize everything the author wrote in this book about this journey to the center of the earth was actually true, and the author was there, and he must have obviously went there, and everything he wrote about in the book was his journey to that place, to that location in the center of the earth. And I really enjoy that. And then they go to the place where they find where his brother was in this place as well, and they find where the author had been staying and had his own little house and stuff, and it was like centuries ago. And yeah, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was fun. I'd definitely be interested. I know it's a shame that Brendan Fraser's not in the second one, but it feels like a bit of a franchise that could have went somewhere. I think if it had a real backing, and obviously it got a sequel, so it must have had a bit of success. I'll have to check out the numbers for that one. But had the sequel, maybe it is one where we do get a trilogy, and maybe years to come we see a Rock, Brendan Fraser team up, Journey to the Center of the Earth Part 3. Yeah, I'd be down for that. I'd be definitely down for that. What else has been on this screen? What has been on my screen this week, ladies and gents? Well, I watched the latest trailer for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Don't get me wrong, with trailers in general now, not many trailers get me super hyped. Because there's too many trailers for movies. I feel like that now a lot of the time. I feel like you can only latch to one certain trailer, but I do think movies in general release way too many trailers. But I saw this new trailer. I can't even remember. I think I've watched a few trailers before for this movie, but so the part one, Dead Reckoning, the new Mission Impossible movie, Tom Cruise return as Ethan Hunt. A lot of the regular, returning cast members. There's returning cast members from the very first movie as well, which will be very interesting to watch. This movie, the trailer was amazing. You know, everything you want from a Mission Impossible movie. It kind of looks like they're digging into about his past and his future. It looks, from what I gathered from the trailer, maybe it's just from what I saw. I've not read anything online, but I think it's going to be something like there's an algorithm where they can predict. This is just from what I'm getting from the trailer, because there was a certain line where we can predict something like about the future and the past or something like that. I think there's some sort of computer, like super AI computer in this story that they're trying to destroy. That's the mission for Mission Impossible, because it can predict, really bad events, and it can do damage to loads of things. But I think it can predict the past of a person and the future of a person, potentially where they die, how they die. And I think that's going to be maybe the film. I think that's going to be the plot for these two movies, actually. I think it could be something to do with something like that, some sort of algorithm. I mean, what else can they do at this point? It needs to be something like that, because they've done every other sort of plot device and plot for the Mission Impossible movies. But I never get bored with these movies. They are amazing. I saw I think it was like midpoint in the trailer where he does that stunt, and it's been well documented in the news where he does this motorbike stunt where he's just riding over a mountain and then he lets go and his parachute goes. And that stunt is, he did it for real. Tom Cruise, unreal, absolutely unreal, mesmerizing to watch. And he really is like the last true action hero, isn't he? Like, what kind of guy does? I mean, there's not many actors who will do that, who are on that level of a Tom Cruise. You're not going to get like a Bradley Cooper doing stunts like that, or someone in that same sort of like range as a Tom Cruise. I don't even think Bradley Cooper's kind of on a Tom Cruise level, but I mean, someone like that, no one's going to do that. He is just an extraordinary. Like, don't get me wrong. As a person, maybe he's got his flaws. Personally, everyone's got their opinions of him. As an actor, though, I think as an actor, he's incredible actor. I think his stunts are amazing, and his movies are always top notch. And the Mission Impossible movies, I've not had one of those movies that have disappointed me personally. I think they've all been really solid movies. I do think they've got better as well. I think past Mission Impossible 3 onwards, they really got a lot better. They really improved. Each and every movie kind of has like upped the game. I felt like the first two were kind of just like, they were decent. They were really good movies. They were good movies, but they just kind of keep on stepping up now. And I felt like the first two, they kind of like just in the same sort of ballpark, same sort of range, and then everyone after that just kind of went, let's go better, and they really have topped it each and every time. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. I think it's going to be great to see, and I'm looking forward to it. So that's what's been on the screen this past week, ladies and gents. Let's get to today's headline topic.
The Movie Cheer Podcast presents the headline topic for the episode.
Remember to spread a bit of
headline topic. Headline topic.
Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer.
So today's headline topic, I'm doing a bit of a Fast and Furious marathon. I've been doing it over the past few days. Fast and Furious 4 and Fast 5, those two movies for me are the two biggest movies, the best movies in the franchise. And I thought, like I said, Fast X has just come out, the latest movie in the franchise this past week. Let's deep dive into those two movies that I think are really iconic and really franchise building movies. I think without those two movies, personally, this franchise would be dead in the water. I really do think it would be. It wouldn't be. I don't think we'd have a Fast X if it were for these two movies. Personally, I really don't. I think if these two movies weren't what they were, there's no way there'd be Fast X or these future movies they're going to be doing. But I mean, look at this now. This franchise, 10 movies. It's had a spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw. It's probably going to have more spin-offs in the future. They're saying they're going to do, 2 more movies after this, at least. I think they'll probably end up doing even more than that, personally. I think there's always going to be more and more Fast and Furious movies. There's no way they're ever going to stop this train of Fast and Furious. There's going to be some shape or form, there's going to be a Fast and Furious movie, whether it's just a spin-off or a mainline franchise. It's a winning franchise, it's a big money franchise. But let's get into these 2 movies I want to discuss. Fast and Furious 4, whatever you want to call it. This was kind of like a big reboot to the franchise. You get Brian Connor, Paul Walker's character, returning, teaming up with Vin Diesel, who wasn't in the second movie, Tokyo Drift. It was the original Fast and Furious. Then it was Too Fast, Too Furious, where Brian Connor was in that one, and then there was Tokyo Drift, where Brian Connor wasn't in that one, Paul Walker. But Vin Diesel did have a cameo at the end. But for Fast and Furious 4, it was a return of the whole mainline cast. Michelle Rodriguez, Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, all of them returning characters from that first movie, the main characters anyway. This movie, like I said, it is a reboot. It starts off with a really great opening where they're stealing this tanker. And it's a car chase. It really just sets up the tone of this, what you're going to get. It's fast paced, it's cars, a lot of heists going on throughout this movie. And that opening scene is incredible, especially when Dom and Letty are in the car and the big tanker is like exploding, going towards them, and then they drive under it while it's going to smash the car and explode, and they survive it. But then we get this story goes on, and we see that Letty, spoilers ahead, I suppose, but Letty does get murdered early on in this story, or we assume she gets murdered because we know she is obviously in trailers and everything for this new movie. Later on movies, we do find out she is actually not dead. But that is then the plot point of this focus of this movie is Dom he wants to find out who killed her. And that's his end goal, and he's trying to get in with this crime syndicate who she was involved with to find out, who killed her to get his revenge. On the other hand, other side of things, then you've got Paul Walker's Brian Connor, who is now back as a federal agent, even though he let Vin Diesel's Dom Toretto go in the first movie, but he's a Fed again, and he, starts getting linked up with this case as well, and he's, him and Dom kind of come to head to head eventually. They meet up again, and basically they decide to team up throughout this movie, even though he's a copper, and they go on this course to try and find who killed Letty, and they join this crime syndicate, they go undercover, and they have to do all these heists and these little chases around in cars and stuff to prove their worth to this top dog, this big time gangster. And there's a great part of the movie where they do this racing challenge where they've got to prove themselves as drivers for this guy who's the main antagonist of the movie. And there's 4 races. They're doing this street race. They get these little sat navs where it shows where they've got to get to, and the winner of the race gets the job, basically. And we see this really, really cool car chase around the city, and the car scenes in this are really, really are top notch. I think what I will say for both of these movies, Fast 5 and Fast 4, I do feel like the later ones in the franchise kind of go a bit too over the top. And it feels like they just kind of these ones are kind of a bit more grounded, even though they are really wild car chases and races throughout these cities. But I feel like later on in the franchise, they just go a bit way too. It goes more like Mission Impossible to me, and I think that kind of is a detriment to the franchise. I think it kind of doesn't make the franchise better. And I don't know what Fast X is like. Maybe that's not like that because I've not seen Fast X as of yet. But I do think these 2 movies are just a bit more grounded in reality, and I think it really works a lot better. So the car chases, even though they are really flashy and crazy explosions and stuff like this and crazy jumps, they do still feel realistic at points. And you're watching it and you're thinking, okay, that could actually happen. And these are just like top drivers, these two guys, Brian and Dom are just actually really good drivers, and you're thinking, okay, I couldn't do that behind the wheel. Sure, I couldn't do it, but these guys can do it because they're just like super obsessed with cars. They know how to do all the gears super quick, and they just know how to drive really well. And you just see this in this race around this city, which Dom eventually wins. This really unreal great race, and it's just like over the top. And Paul Walker's Brian, he does this like jump at the end where he's just like driving onto from this top of this hill, and he just drives down and goes onto this road. And that scene is it's ace. He's just like the sat nav keeps on saying redirecting route, and he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna drive over here and just like hope for the best, and it works out. But yeah, I really enjoy that scene. But this movie, again, it also adds another great scene with cars at the end of the movie. And again, another great focus on cars. They really do still, like, I think these two movies really still go for the premise and idea that these movies are about fast cars and heists and stuff like that. And the end scene is where they've got to go through this big tunnel system in this big mine. And that scene is great as well. They're going through these big mines, and you never know, like, are they going to go the right way? Are they going to crash into a wall? And the really intense scenes, and you're going through the scenes through this tunnel, and you're thinking, this is pretty epic. But those scenes are great. But I think the story here also, you've got all these great car chases, great car scenes, but the story is the most important thing, because you got obviously Brian's character, who's this Fed again. Dom's on the run. He's a criminal. We've got Mia, Dom's sister, who is obviously the love interest of Brian. They start to fall for each other again. And you've got really the story significantly here is that Paul Walker's character of Brian is kind of unsure what side of the fence he's on, whether he should be a good guy or a bad guy, or whether it means any difference to be one or the other. Because I think there's a line in the movie where Mia, and I'm paraphrasing here, where she kind of says, like, are you a good guy pretending to be a bad guy, or a bad guy pretending to be a good guy? And she talks about like his code, and he sort of says, I'm working on it and stuff like that. And you see obviously throughout this movie that Brian, who he feels like he owes a debt to Dom, and he loves Mia, and you see him slowly throughout this movie, kind of realize that he wants to be on the other side of the law. He doesn't want to be a detective, a Fed. He would rather be a criminal, because he feels like there's more loyalty and more respect in that world, and with the Toretto family, and that's where you see this story really develop. But I think it's a really well done story. And I think even from the word go, you see Brian Connery's chasing down a criminal. It really, straight away from the word go, it feels like his movie in a way, even though you're following the story of like to get the guy who killed Letty. But I think it's a solid movie, and I love like I said, you've got all these great car scenes, but deep down there's a real, really true story to this, where it's kind of this guy who is a Fed, who is, it's really not sure what his life is and who he should be, really. And it's his discovery of whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. And also then you've got the mystery of who killed Letty. Let's find who killed Letty. And it really works well. There's really good story plots going on in this movie, and I think it really works well. Now let's go to Fast 5. I gotta say, Fast 5 is probably one of my most favourite movies. I absolutely love this movie. I think it might have been like my brother-in-law at the time mentioned this, and I'm pretty sure it was him, and he said like Fast 5 is brilliant. I can't remember watching it at the cinema. I think I watched it when I got it on DVD. So this was released 2011, so 3 years after Fast and Furious 4. This movie did really well at the box office. I think it's like 6th or 8th all-time highest grossing movies, Fast 5. It's that good. It did that well at the box office. So I think Fast and Furious, the fourth one, did well, but Fast 5 really was the changing sort of tide to say this franchise, Fast and Furious, is actually a big money franchise. It can make a lot of money. So it leads on very much directly from the fourth movie. The fourth movie ends where Dom is is sent to prison for life sentence, and then he's going on this prison bus going sent to jail. And at the end of Fast Forward, we see Brian, who, again, like I said, you see this story of him. Is he a good guy, a bad guy? He decides to, his loyalty is with the Toretto family. Him, Mia, and some other people are driving fast cars, and they're about to ram the bus off the road. That's where Fast 4 ends. Fast 5 begins with that very same scene, and we see the breakout of Dom. But that scene is amazing. I gotta say, it's got this epic entrance where it just fades in and out of this story. It's got this kind of like very like Western, like a cowboy gripping music, really intense, slow pace, like just really like a Western feel to it, the music, and I think it really works well with it and builds up a really, an intense opening to this movie. We see the breakout, and then obviously him, Mia, and Brian are fugitives. They go on the run. They go to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and that's where the main story of this movie goes on. So the plot of Fast 5 is basically they have at start of the movie, they have they're stealing cars from this train for this job, and they decide to make a call to basically steal the cars for themselves because they don't trust the guys on the mission. But this one guy who's like the top criminal in Brazil, Reyes, is like Mr. Reyes. He is actually the father of Jason Momoa's character in this new Fast X movie. So it kind of like Fast 5 is very much a lead on to Fast X. But he wants a certain car because it holds this chip that has all like the details to all his money and stuff like that, all his shipments and stuff like that. So basically, what happens then? They decide to basically rob him of all his money. They decide, this story goes on. They decide they're going to rob this guy because it's did him wrong and stuff like that. They're going to rob all his money. And it leads to the ending of this movie. They go and he's got all his money in different spots around Brazil and Rio, but then he decides, because he's got the police under his, everyone. He basically owns the police. He owns everyone. This guy, this Reyes, and all his money goes in this vault in a police station in Rio de Janeiro. So Dom and Brian decide they're going to rob it, but they need a team, and this is where we get now. It kind of goes into, rather than just being Dom and Brian's story, it's like this is a big team up. And again, this is another big change in the franchise, really. And it really does feel like this one goes all in on heist movies. It feels like, for me, as a big fan of the movie Heat, it takes a lot of inspiration from movies like Heat. It's got that big heist feel, big crime feel to it. So they decide they're going to rob this safe in this police station. And you get a lot of the returning characters from all of the different Fast and Furious movies. Even characters who we've never met before return. Gal Gadot, Han from Tokyo Drift, Tyrese from Too Fast, Too Furious, and Ludacris, they return as well. You get this big team up. The two other guys, the two Portuguese guys, I think, or Portuguese or Brazilian guys, they're in it as well. They go on this, the mission is to do this big heist, but then in the middle of all of that, you've got another antagonist in this story as well, in The Rock. Well, he starts off as the antagonist, but he kind of then turns like a good guy halfway through the movie. But The Rock as Luke Hobbs in this movie, he's like this top dog hunter of like criminals, and he works, obviously, he's high up in the CIA or whatever it is, and he's tasked with going to Brazil to hunt down these fugitives. And so you've got them trying to rob this bank, but you also got The Rock in the Dwayne Johnson as Hobbs trying to chase them down. And I gotta say, The Rock in this movie is great. Early on in this movie, though, I think, I was watching this movie, and I think early on, his character seems very, very different to other movies where Hobbs is featured. Because I feel like other movies just feel like The Rock doing The Rock in movies. But this one, at the start, he feels like, he's a bit of he's a real badass. He does feel like he's very dominant, and he feels like he's a bit of he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's a mean guy at the start of this movie, and he's he wants to destroy Dom and Brian and bring them in and get them arrested. And yeah, it feels very different in tone to later movies. And Hobbs and Shaw, that movie, the characters seem night and day in a way. I feel if you're watching early on in the movie, and it made me think, would it have been better if they kind of leaned into that a bit more, that side of him, and make him a bit more of like a badass, and kind of like maybe make him a bit more villainous in other movies. I think it maybe, they could have really. I think it makes total sense making him a good guy and teaming him with Vin Diesel at some point, because it makes sense. The big enemies at first, they fight throughout this movie, but I think it would have worked. If they really did that over maybe like two or three movies, like to really showcase him as like this more like villainous. I know he wouldn't be a villain because he's just he's working for the police, but this more character who is playing against the team for a few more movies. They could have stretched it out, but I also equally understand why they turned him, and I think it does. I think it works well in this movie. At the end of this movie, where his team are all getting killed, and then Brian and Dom come to the rescue with their team to help him, and then he decides to, because Reyes's men killed all his team who were hunting Brian and Dom. He decides to join Dom's team, even after like a brutal fight with him, and he said, "I'll rob you. I'll help you rob this safe and stuff, this vault." And yeah, they end up teaming up in the end. Later on in the movie, some of the great scenes are, the vault going through the city of Rio de Janeiro. It is just incredible. I think it's really well done. As a fan of one of my favourite movies is the Italian Job remake. I love that movie. And again, I think there's a lot of inspiration from that movie as well. Heat, Italian Job, a lot of inspiration here for this film. And you've got this big safe going throughout the city, smashing through buildings, and then they pull off this like trick where they swap the safes, and then they get away with hundreds of millions, like $100 million or something like that. But yeah, it is an absolute stunning movie. And like I said, these two movies are for me, very much. Look, they are over the top. I mean, a safe getting pulled by two cars throughout the streets of Brazil that's full of like $100 million is a bit over the top. But I feel like compared to the other movies, in later movies in the franchise, these are the most grounded, but they're also the groundwork for what this franchise is now. I don't think this. I've not seen Fast X. I've heard really great things about it, so I hope it is a good movie. I hope it kind of goes back a bit and kind of grounds itself a bit more to this movie. And I think with the link that, Jason Momoa's character is like the son of the guy, Reyes, who is eventually killed in this, and he wants to get his revenge. Maybe that will make it, and obviously hopefully there'll be a lot of links to Fast 5 with this movie. Maybe that'll make it a good movie. I do feel like, though, it has kind of went a bit off course. I couldn't even remember the rest of the movies. They all feel like they all just blend together. They're not bad movies. I enjoy them, but I feel like these two are very memorable, these two movies, whereas the other ones are kind of just like, oh, this happens. I don't have a clue what's going on. But yeah, I really enjoy these movies, though. Fast 4, Fast 5, great movies in the Fast and Furious franchise. No matter how you feel, some people may feel about Fast and Furious that these are just, Hollywood movies, they're popcorn flicks. Look, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. I personally, I talk about movie cheer. These movies give me a lot of movie cheer. I get a lot of enjoyment from watching these at home. And Fast 5 is just up there as a top tier movie for me. I love it. I think it's so good. Great cast, great chemistry, great score. The whole movie is just from top to bottom, from the start to finish. Fast 4 is great. Fast 5, though, is just immaculate. Absolutely immaculate. It's just doesn't put a foot wrong. And that is, you don't get many movies like that, I don't feel, these days. And for me to say that, it's a movie now, it's over 10 years old, and I still look at it and think that is just such a memorable movie, such a great movie. And it's weird to think as well, you get a fifth movie in the franchise is its best movie. You don't get many franchises like that where you say like the fifth movie is like the best one. It's usually like, the first or the second one's the best. The fifth movie, it took them 5 movies to get the best movie out there. Imagine if you got that with all the other franchises that were duds to start with, and they had like a few movies that weren't great, weren't box office hits, and the fifth movie, if all these people in the the film production companies, they knew the fifth was going to be the best, I think we get more sequels out of films. But yeah, I enjoy it, and it's been a great discussion, a great deep dive today on the episode. Now let's move to the next segment of today's show.
Case covers take on other case covers. Can you handle that?
Case cover collision. Case cover collision.
Case Cover Collision. Each and every week, I choose a different movie and look at the different case covers for that movie and put them up against each other to find out which one is the best on Case Cover Collision. Now, this week on the show, I will be looking at Creed 3, the third movie in the Rocky spin-off franchise, Creed. I've seen the first two movies. I've not seen this movie as of yet, Creed 3. The first two movies, though, I have really enjoyed. I think the first one was... I think they were both really good movies. I think the first one was slightly a bit better, but I think I think they're really great movies. I'm a big fan of the Rocky franchise, and these are great, really great movies. If you kind of sitting on the fence and you're a big Rocky fan, get these watched because they're solid boxing movies, and really, I think they really, if you're into the Rocky movies, you'll dig these. I really like them. But yeah, Creed 3 is the third one in the franchise. I don't know if they're doing any more, if there's any plans, but I'm going to definitely be watching this at some point soon. But we got 3 case covers today to look at. We got the Blu-ray, the DVD, and a 4K limited edition steelbook. So let's get to it. Let's look first at the Blu-ray for Creed 3. So we have here we have the two main characters of this movie. Michael B. Jordan's character of Adonis, Creed, and then Jonathan Majors' character, who's I think he's like an ex-friend of his, and then they end up fighting for the world title or whatever it is. You've got here, first of all, Adonis is center stage. He's looking in the distance in his boxing gear, like it looks like he's mid-fight. And then behind him, you have Jonathan Majors' character in like a larger form than him. He's a bigger shot of him. It's kind of like showing him as like this bigger task to defeat, this big enemy he's got to take on. And he's looking in the distance in the opposite way, like he's in the ring as well, because you can see the ring ropes behind him, and it's like in the arena. It's like a black and white background, but I imagine that's like the boxing arena, kind of like in a blurred sort of look. To the right of that, you've got Creed, and then you've got the numbers, 3 number 1s behind that in red. So you see Creed 3, and then you've got the text of the cast members, Michael B. Jordan, Tessa Thompson, and Jonathan Majors above that in very small text. I really like this cover because, first of all, it's a boxing movie because the guy's dressed in boxing gear. I think, again, if you see this and maybe you've heard of the franchise, you look and it looks like a really good cover. I think it's a well put together cover as well. I think I like the way they've done Jonathan Majors as this bigger, sort of larger image here to, highlight him as this big, man to take on this guy who's going to be a really tough fight for Adonis to take on. And obviously I think it's a really good cover, this one. I really like it. I like the look of Adonis's trunks. I'm just spotting his trunks as well that Adonis has got on. He's got like the Rocky trunks, the American flag ones, but they're in like a white and grey colour in this. So it's like he's done his own sort of take on Rocky's American flag trunks, which were his father's before that, Apollo's. I really like that. I think it's a really nice touch, and he's obviously something, I don't know whether he wears them in the other two movies, something similar, but yeah, I think that's a great look. But yeah, I like this Blu-ray cover. I think it's really well done, and I honestly can't say anything wrong about it. I think it's the perfect cover for this movie so far anyway. So far, let's look at the other covers. So next, we're going to go to the DVD cover of this movie, the DVD case cover. So again, it's set in the boxing ring, this one. You've got a really close-up shot of both guys looking head-on at each other in the boxing ring. They're in the boxing gear. You just see like them all, like these guys are all like ready to fight. They're sweating, sweat dripping from them. They're all intense. So the DVD cover, that you've got Michael B. Jordan. You can see his face, and you see the back of Jonathan Majors' face, and they're just stirring each other out in the ring. It's kind of like that black and white, smoky background of the arena. Again, very blurred background. Very much the same background here, but they're just looking intensely at each other. In the middle of it, you've got the text of the 3 main characters here, the 3 main actors, and again, the same logo for Creed 3. This time, though, in the middle of it, just in between those two guys. Look, I do like this. It thinks, this is, for me, it's like showing like there's a big duel, a big fight between these two guys. I think, again, you can see it's some sort of sports fighting movie. For me, though, what I will say, I do like this cover, but you don't necessarily know it's boxing. It could be any sort of it could be MMA, it could be it could be wrestling, any sort of fighting sort of thing. Whereas the first one, they got boxing gloves on. It feels like it's a bit more the sport, and this is a boxing sort of movie. This one, so I do like this movie. I do like this case cover. I don't think it's awful, but I think the first movie case cover, the Blu-ray, works a lot better because you can see the boxing gloves, and I think it's just I like the way in the first cover you've got like that big shot of Jonathan Majors, and then you've got Adonis, in his boxing pose and his boxing gear, ready to go. This one is an intense one, but for me, the Blu-ray wins through so far. Now, let's go to the 4K Steelbook of this, the limited edition 4K Steelbook. I will link in below all the links for these movies if you want to purchase them. A small amount goes to the channel to support the channel through Amazon affiliate link. So I will drop in them links below, ladies and gents. So let's look at this cover. This one is very different again. So this one actually just features Michael B. Jordan, and he's in the corner, sitting down in the boxing ring. He's got his boxing gear on. It's a black background, so just pure black in the arena, but you can see the white ropes of the boxing ring. To the right of Michael B. Jordan, you've got that same logo of Creed 3 again, in the red and the white. And then he's just looking, facing at the camera. He's to the left of the shot, but it's a very, you see it's a whole shot of him, a full-length shot of him in this boxing ring. Kind of looks like an advertisement for some sort of sports brand, I'll be honest here. Like some sort of which is like a boxing brand? Is it Lonsdale or something like that? It looks like that to me, or a Nike advert, Nike advert for boxing or something like that. So again, I think this cover works a lot better than the second one for the reason that you can see quite visibly that this is a boxing movie. He's got boxing gloves on. He's in a boxing ring. I think, again, you realise, you see Creed 3 again. If you're a fan of the Rocky franchise, you can see that. But I think the boxing gloves, to me, it just, you're going to get a boxing movie of some sort. So if you're not too sure what this movie is about, you see it down HMV, you think, okay, it's a boxing movie. I like sports movies. I like boxing. Let's give this movie a shot. It works well. What I will say, though, is I think it's a great shot. I think it really works well with the shot of Creed here, because he is obviously the main guy in the story. But I got to say, that first case cover in comparison, because I think it's missing, that enemy there and having that villainous character in there. I do think it's a sort, it is a really good case cover, this. I like the shot because it's like black and white as well. And it kind of is a really well done shot, this. And I'm actually really torn now, to be honest with you, which one is my favourite. This is really hard because I'll be honest with you, I do case cover collision, and I have an idea of where I'm going to go sometimes, but then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe this is. I think I'm going to trust my gut. I like this cover. I like the 4K Steelbook limited edition. I think it's a really well done cover, black and white. It works well. You see, it's a boxing movie. But for me, the winner of today's case cover collision is the Blu-ray of Creed 3. I think it works a lot better. I think, you're seeing the shot of both characters. I think it's a really great, well done cover. You see what sort of movie it is. The Steelbook is a very close second for me, but that Blu-ray cover is the winner. I think it's a superb cover. It tells me everything I need to know about this movie and what sort of movie I'm going to get. And I think it's a really top cover for this movie. I can't wait to give it a watch at some point. But yeah, Blu-ray won through this week on Case Cover Collision. Now let's move on to the next segment of today's show, the Amazon Top 10.
The Amazon Top 10 is approaching. Prepare yourself. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Amazon Top 10 has arrived.
The Amazon Top 10. Each and every week I give you the bestsellers list on amazon.co.uk for the bestsellers of DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks. Let's look at the bestsellers list for this week, ladies and gents. First of all, we're going to start off at number 10. We have A Man Called Otto on DVD, a Tom Hanks movie. At number 9, we have Jurassic Park, the 30th anniversary. Wow, collector's edition 4K. We're going to have to do a case cover collision on that. That's going to be good to look at. That's at number 9. I imagine that's probably going to go up the list over the next few weeks as well. At number 8, we have Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. At number 7, we have John Wick Chapter 4. That is, I think it's let's have a look at what that is. That is the Blu-ray of that movie, I think it is. At number 6, we have Elvis on DVD. At number 5, we have Downton Abbey, A New Era on DVD. At number 4, we have Puss in Boots, The Last Wish on DVD. At number 3, we have Fast and Furious 9 on DVD. So, the previous movie in the franchise is moving up because of the release of Fast X. At number 2, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania on Blu-ray. And at number 1, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania on DVD at the top of the Amazon Top 10. Now, that is it for the Amazon Top 10. Let's move on to the final segment of today's show. And the final segment of today's show is Not So Worthy Blockbuster Housekeeping. This is the part of the show where I discuss what is going on with the channel. Just a general chit-chat at the end of the show, talk about stuff. So, what has been going on over this past week? Well, last week I had the video on the channel of the quick topics one. I do these every so often. The original plan was doing them at the end of the month. Sometimes I just kind of lose track of time or I'll miss a show and stuff and just throw them in every so often. I really do enjoy doing those though. I do choose 6 different quick topics related to movies, physical media collecting, and last week the headline for that one was the Gladiator 2 sequel, and it was interesting to hear from a lot of people who had thoughts on that movie, and obviously there was other topics as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing that video. I like doing them every so often. It's a nice break as well from doing the podcast every week. Just do something a bit different. But anyway, I've got some comments here from the Movie Cheer Town community, and let's have a little look at the comments on that video. So I've got Mark here, Mark G. Mark is a big member of this community. He's been part of this community for a long time. I really do value Mark's opinion. And Mark has said, hey, nice commentary as always. You're right about comedy on film. I've been watching Barry on Prime and Ted Lasso on Apple. Both are amusing but not side-splitting funny. Not sure about Gladiator, we'll see. As for Marvel, I've gone completely off the boil at this point. No interest at the mo. Take care, buddy. Thank you very much for the comment, Mark. Really appreciate that. Talking about comedies, I mentioned that video where I feel like comedy movies are kind of went off the boil at cinema. Like, they're not making comedies anymore. And I think maybe that's the case where they're not making good enough comedies. Maybe that's what Mark's kind of getting at there. And I get him with Marvel again. I think me and Mark are in the same boat with Marvel at this point now. We're just kind of like not really that bothered. I've not even seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet, and I will watch it when it comes out. Probably home release now. I don't think I'm going to go to cinema to see that. I'm just not really. It feels like it's just coming along really quite sudden with the Marvel stuff for me. I really used to love it, and it's not. I still enjoy it, but I'm not got that excitement to see it straight away at the cinema anymore at this moment in time. Anyway, I think I need to change my mind. I need to have a few decent movies to really win me back over. But great comment from Mark, as always. Next up, I got another comment from another valued member of this community. I value everyone, by the way, in this community. I think you're all awesome. But these are people who have been a part of this community for a long time and really regularly involved. And that's why I want to see more. If you're sitting there and you watch the videos, get involved in the comments. Get in touch and just leave a comment and get involved with the community. Get involved with other comments as well. You don't have to talk to me directly. Speak to other people in the community as well. Get involved. It's a community, a friendly community where everyone's here to get involved. And here we got Philip Coghill. Phil has been on the show a good few times now. I really like Phil. He's a really good friend. And it was nice to hear from Phil. He commented on this video as well. And he said, I think the reason we see less new comedies coming out is that a lot of audience members probably feel that comedies play just as well on the small screen. So have been going to see them So I've been going to see them at the cinema less and less. As a result, the studios feel less inclined to make them. I think that's a really good comment and a really good point. I think with the likes of Netflix, Amazon Prime, you're getting more comedies just going directly on there, and people are more happy to watch comedies at home, and they want that big blockbuster movie at the cinema instead. It's a shame though, because the cinema is actually the best place to see a comedy, as they are a lot of fun when you're surrounded by a big group of people laughing with you. I totally agree. I think that's for most movies as well. I remember, big experiences. I mean, Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man movie, when we had them big surprises, being in that cinema and seeing everyone's reaction was great. And I totally agree with Philip as well, though, to, having audiences, people around, sometimes it really does make things a lot more funnier as well. But yeah, big thank you to Philip as well. Phil's got a great channel, great guy as well, and great comment as well there. But that is it for another show, another podcast. I've really enjoyed today doing a big deep dive on those two Fast movies. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do give it a like and leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, and please do subscribe to the channel as well. If you've been listening to this episode via a podcast app of your choice, please do subscribe to the podcast app and leave a 5-star review and send me a link, a picture, a text, whatever you want to send me to that review, and I will read it out on the show as well. All of the subscriptions, all the likes, the comments, all really help the Movie Cheer podcast to grow even more. Great show as always. Really enjoyed the topics of today's show. Let me know all your thoughts on today's topics. First of all, Fast and Furious 4 and 5, are they the best ones in the franchise for you? How do you feel about Fast and Furious in general? Are you watching Fast X? Have you already watched it? Let me know your thoughts, ladies and gents. Which one was the winner for Case Cover Collision for you out of those 3 Creed free covers? And let me know your thoughts on the rest of today's movie topics. Yes, great show. Really enjoyed it. It's good to be back doing the podcast after a week or so off as well. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer. As always, I will see you next time.